Ladies and gentlemen, Stock Scrub A here, and today I have good news if you live in Europe. You guys might be getting rid of Facebook and Instagram. I can't imagine how much life is going to be better for y'all. Seriously, Meta Platforms is threatening to withdraw from Europe, so I figured we should talk about it. Let's go.
I'm getting quiet now. Lay low when you reach zone pipe down. Making house take the breath.
Alright, honestly, personal opinion, no beef with Mark Zuckerberg. I feel like the world might be a little bit better if Facebook kind of just, wasn't what most people do with most of their time. I'm talking about adults here, I feel like a lot of social media maybe doesn't have the most positive impact ever. So when I saw that Meta was threatening to turn off in Europe, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit jealous. Meta says it may shut down Facebook and Instagram in Europe over data sharing dispute. No matter what the dispute is, let's be realistic here, they're probably just threatening them more than anything to please don't change the rules. Apparently they've been slammed by Apple's privacy changes, they can't really afford to cut out an entire continent of business. That being said, if Europe's going to make it a lot harder to do business or nearly impossible, then obviously they're at a point where if costs start to overwhelmingly outweigh whatever they're going to make, they're not going to do it. I don't know. In my mind, maybe they're going to turn it off in Europe. This is probably more just posturing from Mark Zuckerberg to try to get them to not enact the law. Meta has said it's considering shutting down Facebook and Instagram in Europe if it can't keep transferring user data back to the US. The social media giant issued the warning in its annual report last Thursday. Regulators in Europe are currently drawing up new legislation that will dictate how EU citizens' user data gets transferred across the Atlantic. I love that all of this boils down to them, needing to transfer the data back to the United States for it to be processed. Call me crazy, but one of the most beautiful parts about computers is that if Facebook really wanted to, they could make a plant or facility, not plant, sorry, in Europe to analyze the data. Take the results of that data and send it overseas. I don't know if that would be against the rules still, or maybe you could just cross-check the numbers, make sure everything's lining up. I don't know. I don't really know why the data has to be transferred in its raw format back to the United States. It seems like in my mind, this is one of those things that a tech company should be able to find a workaround for. That being said, when you're the size of Facebook and you can just be like, we're gonna turn it off unless you guys stop, and they instantly go back to redrawing, then why even bother coming up with the workaround? I mean, seriously, Facebook said, we're leaving Europe, and they're like, no, we'll rewrite it, I'm so sorry. Facebook said if a new transatlantic data transfer framework is not adopted and we're unable to continue to rely on the standard contractual clause or rely on another alternative means of data transfer from Europe to the US, we will likely be unable to offer a number of our most significant products and services, including Facebook and Instagram in Europe. The company added this would materially and adversely affect our businesses, financial condition, and results of operation. I mean, obviously, it would very much affect your operation, dude. I feel like if you drop a continent off of your operation, then that's going to affect profits a little bit, at least by a seventh. I know a majority of Facebook users are probably in North America, actually. Jokes aside, though, I think anytime you're a worldwide platform that a billion people are on, shutting off a continent's definitely not too great. Losing 200 million people, whatever it is, not too shabby. Or not too shabby. You guys know what I'm saying. It's bad to lose 100 million users when the entire financial backbone of your business is based around having users. Seriously, though, I don't know if this would be the worst thing ever. Tomorrow if Instagram disappeared, right? Is society really worse off? I'm sure a lot of people would be like, you could say the same thing about YouTube. You know what? Fair enough. If YouTube disappeared tomorrow, though, how are you going to look up how to do your math homework? Instagram, I would say, out of all the major social medias, is the most useless. I don't even use mine anymore. Because it's just what? Are we really all just going to post pictures of what we want our life to pretend to be? Seriously, I feel like if that one disappeared, it might not be the worst thing to ever happen. And listen, no beef if you do use Instagram. I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think Facebook realizes this isn't the super scary threat that they think it is. Obviously, over 1 billion people have an Instagram account. It's not some, small underground thing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I could understand why maybe Europe would look at that and go, okay, do it. Meta cannot just blackmail the EU into giving up its data protection standards, European lawmaker Axel Voss said via Twitter, adding that leaving the EU would be their loss, and Voss has previously written some of the EU's data protection legislation. A Meta spokesperson told CNBC on Monday that the company has no desire and no plans to withdraw from Europe, adding it has raised the same concerns in previous filings. This to me is exactly what I was saying, bro. Like, what did you expect Europe to do? No, please don't turn off Instagram. We'll do anything, Mr. Zuckerberg. Like, obviously, in that situation, dude, okay, go ahead, turn it off. We don't care. You leaving the EU would be your loss. Seriously, the product that Facebook offers is basically the ability to get data from you. So if they don't, like, allow themselves to get data from you, that's on them, bro. It really doesn't hurt anyone if Facebook gets turned off or Instagram gets turned off, except for the people that own Facebook stock and need it to make money. It's not like Facebook leaving the EU means that they're not going to be able to get potatoes into the supermarket, you know? It just means that, like, there's one less website. I feel like Facebook thought that they had some leverage here, you know, like, guys, we might need to stop operating in Europe. Okay, well, you guys kind of need Europe to make money. Europe doesn't need you. Like, which one sounds more needed, okay? Europe, you won't have Instagram and Facebook, okay? You won't have it. Or like you guys lose an entire continent of users. I'm just saying, one of those sounds like a bigger L. In August of 2020, Ireland's Protection Commission sent Facebook a preliminary order to stop transferring user data from the EU to the US, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal that cited sources familiar with the matter. The Irish Data Protection Commission has commenced an inquiry into Facebook-controlled EU-US data transfers and suggested that the current way of using it cannot be practiced or continue to be used for EU-US data transfers. Nick Clegg, Facebook's Vice President of Global Affairs and Communications, said in a blog post at the time. While this approach is subject to further process, if followed, it could have a far-reaching effect on businesses that rely on this and on the online services many people and businesses rely on. Ireland's Data Protection Commission is expected to issue a final decision in the first half of 2022. If it can't be used as the legal basis for transferring data, they would have to silo off a majority of the data it collects on European users, and they could fine Facebook up to 4% of its annual revenue if it fails to comply. I know data has a price, obviously. That's the business model of a lot of places that are based on advertising, you know. That being said, it is nice to see a government standing up and being like, no, you're not allowed to just do whatever you want with the data. If you're going to be transferring data, it has to be done a specific, secured way. You can't just do it the way you've been doing it. I feel like a lot of countries haven't caught up on the fact that, like, data is an important resource yet. The reality that, like, a lot of people say, you know, this is my opinion, but I've heard a lot of people say this, and I believe it as well, but it is just an opinion, is that, like, data is the new oil, you know? Like, the people who have the most data tend to be the most well-off, biggest companies, can make the most well-thought-out research decisions. So obviously, Facebook not being able to use data from Europe is why they would quit. It just wouldn't be worth it. They couldn't sell as many ads for as much of a cost anymore. But I don't really know if that's a bad thing to have more established things in practice and make sure that data is being transferred at, like, a governmentally secure or approved level. Because as it currently stands, you know, you hope the company you're giving your data to keeps it safe, but there's been so many companies that get caught, like, storing everyone's information in a text document. I don't know, maybe some regulation of how data is stored is not the worst thing on the planet, just to make sure that it's not as easy to, like, get data on people, strangers. In July of 2020, the European Court of Justice ruled that the data transfer standard between EU and the US doesn't adequately protect European citizens' privacy. The court, the EU's highest legal authority, restricted how US firms could send user data to the US after concluding US citizens had no effective way to challenge American government surveillance. US agencies such as the NSA can theoretically ask internet companies like Facebook and Google to hand over data on an EU citizen, and that EU citizen would be none the wiser. I mean, obviously, you know, I can see why the NSA like this setup. They can request data on Europeans and not have to let them know. That sounds like, obviously, like a spying agency's best case scenario. But I could also understand why Europe might not like that. You know, like, I'm American, so obviously I know a thing or two about government spying on me. They do it quite often. That being said, I can understand that, like, the EU might not like the fact that America can spy on their citizens whenever they want. Sure, like it's just reality. At any point, the FBI agent outside my house right now can log in and be like, "Hey, yo, dude, you kind of suck at Fortnite." There's a lot of memes about it. You know, how there's like always some dude watching whatever's on your screen. But all of a sudden you change that to like, oh yeah, there's a Romanian spy watching whatever you do. And all of a sudden you're way less cool with it. Not that you were cool with it before, but you get the drift. Basically, they know for a fact that like the US can request whatever data they want. And there's nothing they can really do about it. So I understand why they might not be too much of a fan of that. The ruling came after Austrian privacy activist Max Schrems filed a lawsuit in light of the Edward Snowden revelations arguing that U.S. law did not offer sufficient protection, against surveillance by public authorities. Schrems raised the complaint against Facebook, which, like many other firms, was transferring his and other data to the U.S. The court ruling invalidated the U.S. Privacy Shield Agreement, which enabled firms to send EU citizens' data across the Atlantic, and as a result, they've had to rely on SCCs instead. Overall, I do think they're going to come up with a way for Facebook to be able to transfer data securely. You know, I do think this is a worst case scenario that they're really going to have to turn off Instagram and Facebook. I do like that the European Union's response was kind of like, all right, leave, that hurts you more than it hurts us. I do like that. That being said, I would be flabbergasted if they don't come to some type of agreement, just because like we have to have a way to securely send data back and forth from Europe to America, even if it's not for Facebook. Like, we got to be able to do it somehow. There has to be a process. The second they say the process and how to do that, chances are Facebook, Google, all these companies are just going to start doing it that way. That being said, you know, it does raise the question about whether or not Facebook turning off itself really is that good of a threat for them to use in the future. I love the guy's reaction, dude. Like, go ahead. I think we need to kind of do that a little bit more when it comes to some companies. Not all companies are running around having massive control of the government and telling them how to run stuff, but I would like the idea that the government is a little bit more like, this is what we're doing and you guys have to adapt, instead of the government adapting to what companies want. I just feel like it makes a little bit more sense for it to happen that way. You know, that's just my personal opinion though. I'm not saying I want anything anti-business, but like, I do feel like maybe it is okay that Facebook just can't be transferring whatever private data they have on you via email. It might be a good thing to have some processes for that. I understand for a while the internet was like the brand new business, the Wild West, things were changing quickly, but like internet companies in general have been around the block for 22 years, if not longer at this point, so it might be time for us to accept that it's been around long enough to be able to make a couple rules. I'm not saying stuff's not going to change. Technology is obviously like the one place where things are going to change way faster than everything else, but yeah, it's probably about time that we have some practices in place about how to securely transfer data and blah 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 blah, and not it just kind of be like, whatever your company wants to do, feel free to do it. Also, going forward, I'm no PR specialist, but Mark, you might not want to threaten countries to, like, get rid of something that they don't really want in the first place. Like, just saying, I don't know if you ever went to basics of negotiating. You weren't exactly coming from a position of power right there. The EU does kind of have your company by the balls right now, so you might want to just listen to what they're saying. Overall, though, if you are in Europe and you wish that Instagram or Facebook would be banned, let me know in the comments section down below. I want to test something. You know, I don't usually do it on this channel, but if you guys have been watching the video this far, if you could just go ahead and comment the word Facebook down below. I want to see if having more comments on the video pushes it into the algorithm harder. But on that note, that'll do it. So press the like button. Let me know in the comments section down below what you thought. I would really appreciate it. Of course, you know, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. If you really want to help me out, I'll put a link to the intro song down below, along with a link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast, or, of course, you could use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout. It's a great way to get a discount on G Fuel, help me out at the same time. And last but certainly not least, the last link that you're going to find down there in the description is a link to the merch store, so feel free to go check that out. I would very much appreciate it. On that note, though, that'll do it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.